How's it? Okay, so we should be live. If everybody can just say hello in the chat and just let me know if we're all good, because I don't know. I have a feeling I've done something wrong in the chat. So if we can just let me know if we're live. That should be good. We're good. How's it? Okay. So we should be live. We are. I can see this. If everybody can just say hello in the chat. Okay, there we go. All right. Okay. So yes, we are live because I could hear this ridiculous thing going on in my other window. So there we go. All right. Here we go. Lovely. How is everybody today? Yes, it's better later in the month than anything else. Live in Kiwi, that's always a good start. So we're live and everybody can hear us. We'll wait a little bit just so everybody gets a chance to excuse me, to jump on a little bit. And while we do, so yeah, so I may look a little bit flustered today because it's a nice day outside, which means that I have had to mow part of the lawn. We've got like 2.5 acres, so it's a lot, a lot of mowing, and unfortunately the bit that I had to mow doesn't, we can't get the ride on into it. And what else? Oh, and I had to clean the car because the young man decided that popping an ice cream down on the seat. Oh, hello. Yes, the colonies are called. Hello, colonies. I've got a message for you later on. There's been some update from on the passport side, which is very positive. So yeah, I think I'm going to go back to the original plan, but we'll chat afterwards. So yes, so it's all lovely today. We've been all sorts of things and stuff, and just as a quick update to everybody as per normal. Obviously, this is a critique. It's not designed to just say how wonderful people are. So, sometimes there will be obviously some feedback that's kind of like, well, it's it can be hard a little bit to take on the nose. But I always try and temper things with something positive. Somebody a little while back, I think, said, "Oh, it sounds like you're trying to sort of balance, or you're trying to make your subscribers like you by saying nice things about your work." I think credit is where credit is due. If you do a good job, or I think that something is positive in there, then by all means we should celebrate those things. But it doesn't mean obviously we must just say only nice things. So it's a bit of a balance. The resolution. I don't know. It might be Cliff. I've got mobile internet, so it might be that and what have you. Also, I've been messing with the camera settings a bit, so it's possibly. But there we go. So obviously, with a critique, you guys are free to, so obviously say in chat the sort of things that you like and all those sort of things. But do obviously be mindful that there is somebody, there is a person on the other side of that photograph. So it's all coming. It's nice to just be nice. That's the thing. So Kane the Arcane. So we do a monthly thing. There's as part of the membership, if you're a supporter of the channel, either through the Patreon or the YouTube membership, there's a link in the description box below, you can add in an image to there's like a collective folder, and once a month, give or take, obviously I upload them all, or download them all rather, and then sit and sometimes talk for like 3 or 4 hours about the photographs. Corey, if you're looking for one-on-one critique, I'll give you a direct link to that now in the chat, and that's the same if anybody else would like to have either like a half hour just chat about their images one-on-one, a little bit more of a deep dive, or we'll do something a little bit more long-term in regards to sort of mentoring and what have you. I will pop a link here. I'll do the image review, if you give me 2 seconds. View image review. There we go. All right. So we've got. Oops. There we go. All right. Okay. We got the pop out. There we are. Lovely. Okay. Right. So I think there's a lot of people here. Sounds like, and we've got a lot of lots. We got Invashneki in here. Corey Gorm. How are you? how's it, man? Yeah, we spent some time in Vishneki. Kane, awesome, dude. Thank you ever so much. There will be a link and what have you that I put out later on, which will let you know how to add for the next critique. We got some Northwest Highlands. A lot of Scottish people up here. Oh, I spent quite a while in Scotland. We've got some Floridians in the house. That's all pretty cool. Some Midwest US and Germany. Guten Tagen, or Guten Abend. It's not even Abend. No, it's not. I don't know what afternoon is in Germany. Tennessee. Corey. So this is all the images from May, and then there will be one for June that I'll do towards the end of the month. So there we go. Lovely, right? Good stuff. Ecstatic Oranges in the house. Steve Madlock is in there. Jesus, how's it, Steve? Always good to see you. And yes, so without further ado, let us bring up the first images. Bom, 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 bom. Here we go. All right. So I'm just going to flip back into Bridge so we can see, and then I've got some chat all over here. Lovely. So this is a lovely sort of vibrant looking photograph, and I always like it when you start to see photographs that people are creating of, let's say, everyday things, at least starting to see them in a different context. And this is certainly something, somebody's obviously either at a cafe or what have you, and has seen this lovely, sort of shadow play on the floor. My immediate sort of reaction is I like what you're doing with the break of the paving, that line through there and what have you. That sort of breaks up. It makes it feel a little bit almost like a bit sort of like a bit more sort of graphic design sort of feel. What I'm not awfully keen on though is that chair. I don't know if you guys would agree with that the chair that is there, the shadow is interesting, but the fact that some of the chair is intruding is kind of distracting me from the graphic design element of this. So I think it's one of the the shadow of the chair is interesting, but there's something that doesn't sit right with me about the chair itself. Right? It looks like a little eye, and that's pretty cool. And I wonder if just a change of cropping or something might have made the shadow of the chair feel more as its own thing, rather right now we can sort of tell it's part of the chair. I think that the table and its shadow work together quite nicely because it's a wonderful sort of splayed colour. But yeah, I think, do more of this. It's certainly a lovely image. I don't think it's one of those photographs that you don't really need to mess too much with. I don't think you need to kind of go crazy with the processing or what have you. But it's just, I think that chair, it doesn't quite gel with the rest of the image. So next time you see it, or if this is somewhere you go to on a regular basis, think about how you can either, add that chair shadow in without the chair being in it, and that may require some thinking about it over a beer or two or something. But I like the fact that you have thought to include just that little element of something extra than just the one shadow. But I just think it needs a little bit more thought in its placement, and certainly it's the legs of the chair that are the real thing. It's as Warren is sort of saying, it's a tiny, it's such a small change that's looking at. So yeah, really nice. I like the colours. Interesting looking chair. I can always feel that tang of the metal and stuff on my fingertips. So there we go. All right, and then the complete opposite. We've gone from the sun to the snow. So I'm now feeling a little bit cold. I quite like this idea. I wouldn't say it's certainly not a novel idea, and the photograph. I feel in this case it's been done reasonably well. I think that's kind of always a thing. I just wonder if we were sitting like one to one, and talking about this. I think my question would be that you've got a solid image, you've got a sound thing going on here, and the fact that you haven't been completely obvious by having the the footprints in the snow lead directly to the trunk of the tree is well done, because at least you're being a little bit more sort of so thoughtful. And of course we've got a traditional kind of rule of thirds thing going on. But yeah, the question would be like, what else could you add to this? What else could you, what can you do to raise this up just a little bit differently? And I think the reason that my mind jumped to raising it up is that as I was looking at this, I thought, well, one of the things that you can do, and obviously it's a very minimalistic image, so adding too many more elements is going to detract from that minimalist sort of feel, is either change your perspective, so just squat down in the snow, so that the footprints are now far higher in the frame. If that makes sort of sense. So you've changed the angle of how you're looking at this. So they kind of dominate. At the moment, it does definitely feel like you're photographing on eye level, that you are standing in the snow at 5.5 feet, 6 foot, whatever, and just shooting straight through. How's it, Peter? I'm going to be in Cape Town in October for a flying visit with my father-in-law, who's not seen his young grandson yet, but anyway, I digress. So we're kind of, it feels like we're up here at this normal perspective, and all of us see that every single day. It's changing the perspective, right? Change it up just a little bit. You don't need to go crazy, you don't need to go mad, but I think an image like this that has been seen a number of times, you kind of need to just add a little bit more to it. You need to add just a little bit of a change up from the norm. But I think snow can be very difficult to expose for correctly. On my screen, I'm seeing a little bit of blowout just on the horizon in the middle, but again, that may be the screen and what have you. But so just be. I'm looking in the thumbnail for the image. It doesn't seem quite as blown out, but I think you've nice sort of handling of the texture on the snow. And maybe one day we'll do we'll do a thing about the zone system. Michael Ox has said to add what, and I think because obviously the comments are a little bit behind my talking. What was I saying? Is just to change something up a little bit. This is an image that all of us have seen kind of like 1,000 times before. And it's not necessarily adding something extra into the image, because you take away, I think, when you do that, the minimalist feel of the thing. It is to change the perspective, change the eye level of how you're photographing, where you are, and just messing with our perception ever so slightly, so it doesn't feel like we've seen it all the time. So they go 2 o'clock in the morning, Australia. Oh, tragic old hipster. Either you've got insomnia, or you really like this stuff. So well done. Here we go. So we've got. Let me just check, because this is a. Let me just check that we can still see, right? Yeah, it's a little bit on there, but we're okay. So with this image. And I think 1 o'clock in the morning. Geez, you guys are dedicated. That's what I like to see, dedicated. So with this image, this is a. I'm not sure if this is your family or this is somebody else's family. So let's look at the positive things first and foremost. The light. This time of day, some nice light. This is kind of this golden hour kind of light. Especially I'm going to give it that it's cold because of what the people are wearing, so it's got a sort of a chill feel to it. But yeah, the color of the light is lovely, and that's the benefit of photographing at that time of day. It's a very forgiving light, it's a very flattering light, so that's good. And I think the way that you've handled this exposure. Let's assume that you've exposed this, because I have a feeling if a camera had exposed for this, that this would be a very silhouette-y kind of photo, given that the light's reflecting off the river, the water, whatever behind. So that's a positive. thing. If you have worked out this exposure or exposed for it manually, then well done. I think you've got a good solid exposure. In regards to the image itself, it's kind of again, if we were standing like one to one, I would probably say to you, like, what is the focus of this photograph? What is the point? What is it that you are photographing? Are you photographing the light, in which case all this stuff in front of us is somewhat superfluous? Or are you photographing these people? If you're photographing the people, the family in the tree, let's say it's a boy, this boy about to sort of, he's working up the branches and things, then it feels like you're too far away. Like it feels, my initial thing is, this feels like you've kind of seen a scene from across, a park or what have you, and you've gone, well, this is a nice, scene of a parent and a child, playing in the tree and what have you, and I appreciate that you think that maybe that's kind of like this is a cool photo. And what happens is you've got the bench in the corner here. The tree is kind of it's kind of obscuring everything that's going on. It's just a really busy whole sort of thing. And then you've got the pram, buggy, whatever you want to call it, down in the corner. So eyes kind of going all over the place, and we're not really sure about the point of the photo, right? As I mentioned at the beginning of that, it's what are we photographing here? And I think this is a question always to ask yourself, is like, if you are drawn to this scene, so there's the kids playing in the tree, or the mum and the son playing in the tree, then if you sit there and go, it depends on how comfortable you feel doing this, but you could go up and say, do you know, I couldn't help but see, I saw you across the way, it looks great, would you mind if, you guys just play in the tree and what have you, and if I just took some photographs, and give me your email address and I'll pop some over to you, later on. It's entirely up to you. Obviously, some people may feel, that it's a little bit kind of, a little bit sort of too much. But yeah, it just. The thing is just, the more I think about it, it's all over the place, and it's a good example of, we need to, I think Corey's mentioned, like, to get to the point. Yeah, in the image, what is the point of it? And if it is those people, then you need to get closer to them, Right. Okay, so now we have a fisherman in Cambodia. Here we go. There we go. Right, fisherman in Cambodia. Right. Okay. So here, some guys there's some kids. They're playing in the water. Well, they're not playing. Sorry, they are fishing in the water. And there's a lot going on. It's a bit of an action sort of thing. Now, I like the fact that you have, it's all lit from behind. So, the leaves have they've come alive. Those leaves on the left-hand side have just begun, lovely, because they're being lit from the back. The net, the same thing is going on. That backlighting is making that net glow, absolutely glow. It's really, really beautiful. The guy's facing the wrong way. I would love to see, these are young men doing something that it looks like play, but it's not. This is not, I wouldn't say it's a deadly serious thing, but this is something that's important. They feel like they're men. And we've got the guy on the left, and Corey's sort of talking about that. So he's there sort of looking at us, and he's aware of you taking the photograph. The real subject here, the person who we are drawn to, is completely oblivious. Now, I would say that you think about images that we have seen in the past of fishermen who cast their nets, who do this kind of fishing. They cast them out. And that net does what it's doing here, which is splays out and it will catch the light and stuff like that. Now, that's the photo. That's where the photo is. I think you're missing some beats here, and it may be, obviously we don't know what photographs you've taken before and after this, and what have you. But imagine if he was turned around and really kind of giving us more of his expression, as opposed to the guy on the left, who's looking at us with a kind of, he's got this kind of like, what? What's going on here, man? It's just, that's not genuine. I think you've got so many elements here that look great. The choice of shutter speed, because you can see obviously there's just a little bit of motion in the net, which is great because it gives us that feel. This is something this is always worth mentioning. When you have an object like this kind of net that is supposed to have some movement in it, if it is razor sharp and there is like zero movement in it, you've taken all of it away. If there's just a little bit, like you see on the edges of this kind of motion blur, it imparts a feeling of motion to the thing. But you also have within the frame, because you're using quite a fast shutter speed, it looks like there's a drizzle going on. Certainly down at the bottom right, and then up that side where there's a darker side. So there's some rain. So that rain is like kind of pinpricking through it. I want to see this lad. I want to see this guy with his net fishing. That's the photograph. That's what this photograph is saying to me. Is like that there is a beautiful light here which you've recognised and worked with reasonably well. You've got the right shutter speeds. You've got all this stuff. But my mind wants to go, I want to see this guy fish in this light, in this rain. And I'm just like, oh, it's just, it's one of the things. But yeah, a nice, interesting photograph. All right, and then, a complete change of pace. Complete change of pace here. Why do I keep doing that? Anyway, lovely. Oh, this is, I can see a name on here, but I'm not going to mention it. This is, I like this, really good, right? The thing that strikes me initially is that the tones are really soft, and I mean that in the light way. It's people obviously often make a lot of talk about having a full tonal range. Excuse me. Today's show is sponsored by Brewdog Hazy Jane, which is a low alcohol beer, because I'm trying to watch my weight, so I figured I would go on the low alcohol. It's actually not too bad. The tones, people make a lot of things. The zone system, if you're familiar, they go, we have the full dynamic range of like zone 10, which is like pure paper, what's called paper white, and zone 0, which is just like pure black. And this kind of image, it is a beautiful example of somebody who understands about tones and how they can really elevate a photograph. The lighting on this is great. I think if it was harsh lighting, it would destroy the image, because the shadows would be too much. We lose that feeling of softness that I'm getting from the leaves. I don't know if anybody else has noticed here, right, that the only leaf that is facing up towards us is that one that's like right here. This chap here, and that's really lovely, because it makes that leaf stand out amongst a crowd of the leaves that are all the same. What I know, as I said, I really like the tones. What I would, and I'm going to be very super nitpickety here, is there's in the bottom of the frame there is that leaf that's coming through. Is this guy here down the bottom, and there's this guy over here. Now on one hand they work, because they're pointing to the guy pointing to the leaf subtly that we want to see. On the other hand, they were drawing my eye away from the leaf that we are supposed to be focusing on, and probably that what's going on here is that they are if I squint, right, they're like the same tonal range as that leaf that we are focusing on, so they're competing with our eye. And I think if you just toned them down, just took them down just a little bit, like a smidge, just a tiny amount, it would help keep our focus in. You meant if we burn it in just a scooch, and possibly while you're doing that, maybe just that hero leaf, bring him up. I mean, like not even a stop, like a quarter of a stop, something like that. Be absolutely lovely. But yeah, really, really good example of of tonality in an image, and for people, I think, especially who are new to photography, it's like you sort of see how you can sometimes, especially when you look at an image that is pretty good, that you go, it's like subtle differences, subtle things that are the things that you need to make a change, or you need to kind of look at. So the better your image becomes, it's less hammer and chisel, and it's more sandpaper, so touches just to finish it off. So really, really, really nice, Corey. That was fantastic. And hey, mushrooms, funny you should. My wife came home from work the other day with some mushroom. One of her bosses, they've started up a mushroom business, so she came home with a bag full of unusual looking mushrooms, which we didn't eat. So lovely. So again, so we've got a bit of a change here. We've got this woodland scene of the mushrooms, and immediately what I kind of am drawn to is that little bit of sunshine that is smacked, is kissing rather the cup of the small mushroom at the front, or in the midground. Yeah. No, I was certainly not eating mushrooms from things. Unfortunately, it's like an intruder. He's just come in and said, "Look at me," and to completely destroyed the feel, the quietness of these fungi just hanging out. The rest of the light in the entire image is soft, and it's blue, and it's shadowy, and it's all this stuff. And there's this tiny little piece that's coming through and hitting that mushroom at the front. You can solve this by because of the nature of what you're photographing, a piece of wood or something just off camera would probably have blocked it. So it's certainly something to consider. There's been some comments about the blurs in the background are distracting. Yes, I think to a degree, more so the one on the left, the very bright one. It goes back to what we were talking about with the leaves just now. It is, with the exception of the white of the sunlight, it is the brightest part of the image, that out of focus mushroom. And the brightest part of the image gets so much attention, like full on. So you need to kind of figure out, either you could burn it down in, burn it in a little bit in post, or if you were, I hesitate to tell people to go just rip up, offending fungi who are like in the way. But maybe you could have put, if you don't want to do it, maybe just, there's lots of like loamy kind of soil around here. Maybe you could have put some loamy soil on the cap of it just to break it down. It'd be quite handy. I like what you're doing. The fact you're in a wood and you see these mushrooms, and it's really cool. One of the things you have to kind of think about when you are using these very close focus lenses, either like a macro or something, is that the depth of field is so minute. It's like razor thin, even on like f16 22. It is so shallow. And what's going on here is it never really seems to feel right when you've got like that this a very small thing in front of you and then something just behind, and there's thing in that's in focus. With something like this, I really would like to see all of it in focus. It's fine when you're isolating, say, an insect or something. Had there been, let's say, a butterfly or or a caterpillar or something, if you'd isolated the caterpillar, that's fine. But when it's a group of fungi who are hanging out together, I'd really like to see them all in focus. So that's pretty cool. But yeah. It's good to see. There are some really, some great photographs here that are they just need a little bit. It's lovely just to say, look, just little tweaks, little tweaks, which is pretty good. Yeah. Okay. So here we go. Speaking memories, a little bit of layering going on, which is pretty cool. There is, what have we got here? Okay, so this kind of I was talking to somebody about this. This kind of street photography, layering something or having an element within it that is interacting with something else within you. Now, I like the fact in this case that obviously the portrait of the man on the right, he's an old man, and he's obviously thinking, like this, speaking memories, and he's looking at this lady with her, I'm assuming it's her child, and could be sort of thinking back to his own childhood or his own children or something like that. So there's a bit of a bit of story going on there. It feels to me, though, just a little bit on the nose. So if you don't know kind of what on the nose is, if your English maybe is not that good or you've never heard the expression before. So on the nose is something like, it's kind of really obvious, right? That it's I'm just trying to think of a practical example, that if there was a I don't know, I've totally forgotten of examples of that, but this sort of falls into that, right? So you've got a very old man looking pensive, they're talking about memories. Of course we're going to put like a family or a mum and a child or something in there, because it's that first thing that you think of, that's what it needs, right? And when I say on the nose, it means that you're not challenging the viewer to make the connection themselves. You can make it so they only have to really reach just a little bit, but you want them to reach a touch. Here you're not asking them to engage with the photograph. You are saying, look, here is the man, here is the mother, and I'm assuming the mother, and the child, and that's all works together. You need to kind of make them think. Matt Stewart, and I'll put his name in the chat. Oh, that's not how you spell it. Right, so he has, if you go Matt Stewart, right, so he's a very good example of this. If you go and look at his photography, and his street, and does sort of similar things to this, is that the connections are not immediately obvious, but they only take a few fractions of a second for you to make them, right? So it is and then that makes it more of a fulfilling thing for the viewer when you watch it. So that's kind of, I would say, Dimitri's asked here about like text that required to read, or images that have required to read the text. You don't, I think, it's obvious because he says speaking memories here, but that is just, you don't need to read that to understand this man's expression and this feeling. I would say anything that does require you to read something in a photograph to understand it or to get it, the point, is probably leaning in the direction of maybe not what we want to be doing first and foremost. But I was about to sort of say, is anything that is in there that there is text that I will be drawn to, because after faces and stuff like that, text is quite high in the list of things that the eye naturally looks for. And apart from the speaking memory thing, you have the taxi rack that says the taxis, and I don't know what language this is, but this feels like there's like a taxi rank, and it says, not between these hours and that hour and stuff like that, and your eye is drawn to that, which is a sort of thing. So I hope that it's helpful. I think there's images here, but you could probably have worked with this a little bit more. I think that there's more here. There is a technical thing which I'm not sure what's going on here. I don't know if you can see this on the screen. There is some weird, like, sharp band thing going up the whole frame. See, like that. Now, I feel possibly, and I stand to be corrected, I've been wrong many times before, that if this is film, but that's going the wrong way. Something is up. Check your camera, because that's something that is not right. If you're shooting film, something's amiss in the processing here. I was going to say maybe a bit of scratch or something, but it is so uniform. It just doesn't make sense. But there's something weird. Just go and check it out in your camera. Yeah, very strange. Who knows? Right. Hello, doggy. Right. So it's all about focus. Here, I think we've been talking about We've been talking about aperture, depth of field, choosing the subject. This is a really good example. We are drawn towards this. Teddy is waiting. So, and it's Mark Hempel. Hello, Mark Hempel. Thank you for thinking. Teddy's waiting there. He's waiting for his for his family to come home, and he's got that expression, lovely expression. Very, very nice. Love the selection of focus. I love that the depth of field choice is correct in this one. The exposure is really nice. Again, it's a soft light coming through the blinds and what have you. Now, Kritistimmer, sorry, I butchered that, has kind of preempted me to what I was about to say. The crop here is a little bit off. There's Teddy's face and his body dominate the frame. Teddy's waiting for someone, right? He's like the parrot in Monty Python. He's pining for the fjords, right? He should be his wonderful expression, his face should be on the left-hand side of the frame, and the emptiness should be to the right. At the moment, he doesn't have anything to look into wistfully. He's got a very small thing, and yes, his collar interferes and stuff like that. So if you change the crop, so his head moves more to the left-hand side of the frame, and then he's got more empty space or negative space, whatever you want to call it, on the right, then he's got something to look into. Right? At the moment, everything on the left-hand side is dead space that doesn't contribute to the photograph at all. So that's kind of... So again, there's my biggest thing. People are talking about maybe dodging the bottom and stuff like that. Those are very personal sort of things. I think in this case, maybe not so much. It doesn't really bother me too much. But it's more Teddy's positioning in the frame. He needs to be off to the left. All right. We've got Winter. Hello, Winter Schwartz. Okay. Yeah, my German is appalling. I speak very bad Bumbledeutsch, which, Sarah, if you're still watching, then you know what I'm talking about. So here we go. All right. So an interesting landscape. It's very chaotic, and it's interesting. I mentioned earlier about the family with the people jumping out of the tree, where the tree was interfering and it was just too much. Now this landscape, it is, I get the feeling it's in the winter, because it feels like there is, it says winter snow, Schwartz, sorry, it's, but there's definitely like that kind of cold feel to it. And I think it is that chaoticness, in this case, that is working in for the image. However, I don't think you've tamed it quite enough. It still needs to be chaotic. It needs to be all these dormant trees that in summer are like, you would not see any of this because there'd just be a massive of bushes. But think about, like, Stranger Things is all the rage at the moment like that. And so we're talking about the upside down. So in the upside down, all the trees are devoid of leaves and foliage and all that sort of stuff. And it feels chaotic. But there's still a bit of purpose, there's a bit of point. And the fact that you focused in on this limb that is kind of too much, right, is coming in from the bottom. I think you need to kind of give the eyes somewhere to rest, to at least allow it some refuge from this chaos. And that limb there of this fallen down tree, I think is the place for it to do. But unfortunately, it is at the bottom of the frame. It's the piece that's very much closest to us in the foreground is out of focus. So we're not feeling a place to relax on it. I think possibly if you look at this, if you change it around and you sort of change your perspective and you come down so that limb is more cutting through the bottom of the frame, so you're dividing the frame up into 3 parts, then you might have something there. So you have the limb coming across the bottom, and then that's a place of refuge, and then there will be some of the broken down stuff in the middle ground, and then some of the taller branches in the background. So you've got a bit of a progression through, and I think that's kind of where, next time when the autumn comes around or winter is in again, think about it more in that kind of that sort of mentality. Is that rather than photographing the chaos of a winter wood for the pure, chaos, try and give us at least somewhere to take a bit of refuge within it, to pick out something that can quieten our minds just a little bit. Okay, all right, so this feels like, all right, so just a quick sip of the old Hazy Jane, alcohol-free. It says New England IPA, but it's like, it's never been to New England, so why is it New England? It's brewed in England, so it's not new. Anyway, be that as it may. Okay, so here we go. So this, again, you can correct me if I'm wrong. This feels like it's photographed on an old phone. So I'm not going to discuss the image quality of this because it is, if it's an old phone, then it's an old phone. That's just what it is. I'm intrigued by this because I don't know actually what it is. I've got an inkling, I've got a feeling for what it is, but I can't put my finger on it, which is kind of cool because I'm going, I should know this. I should recognize these sort of things. Is it a chair? Is it a dog's basket? What is it? And yet we're not entirely sure. So it's a great way, to say, look, I'm photographing something that I'm sure all of us will then recognize, and then go, don't know. So it's well sort of spotted. And if you are photographing a phone, especially if it's an older phone, I appreciate that you're going to have a number of limitations from a technical point of view. So what I'm kind of thinking, it's a garden chair into. Of course, it's snow. Wonderful, lovely. Yes, it's snow. That's why I can't put my finger on it because we don't get much snow in the UK. And that's what it is. So yes, so it's really, it's an interesting thing, and I think it's great that you have spotted, some sort of, a shape, an interesting shape, something that is worth just appreciating for its everydayness. I'm sure that those of you who live in areas where you do get like proper winters will go, well, I see this all the time, but Stimme. I can't say the sort of name. I do apologise. That you're seeing something that is every day, but you're choosing to photograph it, and you're choosing to photograph it in a way that intrigues us. Now, I think the composition's kind of I don't mind it, but I feel that the bit on the right-hand side, let's call it the upright of the chair or what have you, because I'm sort of looking around, it's not one or the other. It's not in the photograph, it's not out of the photograph. It's on the edge, kind of just going, hello, you know, and it's not really contributing. What might be something to consider next time is kind of moving the whole image ever so slightly sort of this way. So this kind of sweep of snow goes off to the top left, and then this triangle that's being formed by I don't know what it is. Maybe there's a snow-covered table behind there or something, and then the darkness of the garden in the background. You know, to include some of that, right? Doing something like that. Sorry, Sarah, just seen your comment about my German. Yeah, you are so right. So it is. Now you've thrown me completely. It's if you can make shapes like that, I think that kind of works really, really nicely with these sort of things. So I applaud your thing. If this is an old phone or something like that, then by all means. And you know, don't worry. If you are photographing with, let's say, you know, a more traditional camera, then the image quality, I think you need to just look at it, because either you've cropped in really, like you've had a big photograph and you've cropped a tiny piece out of it, in which case you've got some really dodge stuff going on, or sorry, dodgy, I should say, rather than look at me throwing out slang words. So. Yeah, just do be mindful of that. Just make sure that if you are trying, you can't just crop into things, because your image quality is really going to suffer. Try and crop as much as you can in camera. Okay, so this is all interesting. So we've got Harriet. Here we go. And Harriet's got some nasal piercings and all sorts of things. Now, I like this kind of photograph. I like this sort of portrait. And I think it's getting them. I like the processing on it. I like the lighting. The lighting's all nice, sort of soft lighting coming from, which works really well with these wings. Whether they're attached to Harriet or not, I don't know, but they work quite nicely. I like her pose, but I'm sorry, there's a big butt here. I like a big butt, or we could do Queen, like fat bottom girls. I don't want to see up her nose, right? She looks interesting. Her blouse is interesting. Her wings are interesting. Her hair is interesting. Everything is interesting. She looks like an interesting person. I don't want to see her boogers. Right? That's when she's like this. This is. I get what you're doing. That she's kind of like an angel on earth, but she's too far back, right? It's all her nose, especially the like dead center in the frame. Everything in this is so nice, with one or two other exceptions we'll come to in a second. But it's her nose. If you're going to have her pose like that, looking up, then not so much with the chin, more kind of like lean just a little bit back and just a little bit, and then more with the eyes. Okay, she doesn't need to look right up there. Right, let's assume she's looking for heaven or whatever you want to call it. Heaven doesn't need to be directly above her. Heaven can be over there, right? So like this, right? That gives you the same kind of feel, right? But without all this up the nose. So it's kind of, you know, is the thing. I love the picture, but I just think her head is too far back. I also feel, I know what you see with it, like in with the doorway and those sort of things. I'm finding whatever that blue thing is on the left-hand side looks like a lighting box or something, because it evidently looks like a creative space, is just too distracting, right? So maybe just jiggle it a little bit. She could have come forward if you can't move it. She could come forward because she's got these wings, right? So if she comes further away from the door frame, right? You can also do something about what looks like a 19 behind her that's on the wall. You can come forward, those wings can cover whatever's behind her because she's now further away from the door, and also means that you could probably shift your perspective just a little bit so that you're not, so if you come further back, then you can drop down a little bit lower, and her body and the torso on the top of the wings will hide those 19s. But really nice. I would like to see more from this session. If you have Al Stewart, really, really nice. For those of you who wasn't sure what I was talking about, the box stuff, it's this stuff over here, all that. That is really, I get it again. It comes back to this. It's not in the picture. It's not out of the picture. It's just a little bit there. But I think if you styled this, good job on the styling and that lighting, because I think you're inside a studio, so maybe it's fluorescence, which also, and if you are shooting this with fluorescence, yeah, I think nice. Yeah, lovely. Infrared. It's infrared time. We should have like a ding dong bell. Should like, hey, bing 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 bing. Infrared. What about the right hand? I like. Was it her pose? I think just the one hand was fine there. I think two, like this kind of thing would just be, and less is kind of more like she could have done this, but that's kind of, I think you're being overly pedantic with the hands like that. Yeah, Al, please. Yeah, I think Harriet with the wings. Yeah, I'd like to see more of that. So if you have another one, maybe next month's script. So we have the Tempest. Okay, so now I'm gathering that, I think, so AMV is talking, when he says the hands together prayer pose would have been better. I think, going back to the kind of on the nose thing, like this, I'm an angel, it's too obvious. It's, it wants to be something different. This is, I think that kind of, what she's done with her hands here, is nice. I think just if she was supposed to be an actual angel, dress up, then it's this thing. But I think like that's probably just it's probably a little bit too linear, a little bit too kind of straight down the line. Sorry, Jeet, we've been distracted. So we've got the Tempest here now. Given that this is called the Tempest, I'm going to gather you're talking about this coming storm, which I can sort of that we can just about see it. Now, this is kind of the problem we're running into with this, is that the tree line and all these sort of things in the sky, and with this infrared, approach, are obviously very bright. And what's this coming storm, snow, rain, whatever you want to call it, or whatever it is being lost a little bit. I'm not getting a sense of impending tempestuousness, right? I'm getting a sense of just a very wavy cloud, right? There's something that is missing in the photograph. Something is just not quite gelling, because what you're photographing here is being lost. There isn't any sense of there isn't an ominous sense in this. If and I think probably this is maybe because you've titled this photograph, and if you hadn't titled it The Tempest, then I wouldn't be kind of focusing maybe on the storm, and I would look at it in a different way. So if you are going to title, this is probably a good idea about if you're titling photographs, is don't push the viewer in one direction with the title too much. So let's kind of look at it as a wider thing. In the foreground you have this river, and there's some trees, and then there's a sky. Fairly traditional sort of setup so far, and I feel that where you have this landscape with these, the trees go very white and the sky goes very dark. You want to really use those elements to the fullest in your infrared photography, right? They have this kind of ethereal quality, they have this ghostly quality. Make the most of them. So you want skies that have drama in them, and this has drama, but not in infrared. That the difference, that's what's happening with that sky is just become a very lost tone. It's just one big tone of smush. But in color or black and white or something like that, I think you could probably bring it out a little bit more. You know, if they were very cumulonimbus, you know, these very defined clouds that were stormy, like, you know, like if anybody lives in Florida or Africa or whatever, you know, these kind of clouds, then you get, there's drama and there's thing, and I think they would work. Clouds that have wishy-washy, like kind of storm clouds, because it's full of rain, they've lost any definition and they lose some of their impact there. So I think, you know, it's not a technical failing or whatever. I think you maybe just kind of possibly focused on the wrong kind of Tempest. I hope that seemed a very kind of wavy, all over the sort of place, you know, sort of feedback. And I hope that it kind of, you kind of can listen to it and go, all right, I get what you're saying. It's just, yeah, there's something is not quite gelling with me on this one, because I don't get that feeling of what I think what I think you're trying to get across with the photo. Maybe you could go back into post on this and see what you can do to give it a bit more drama, possibly in the sky. I think that maybe there's some detail in there that you could pull out a little bit in Photoshop and give it a bit more, you know, post processing to really, you know, give that sky some punch. So there we go. Right. Oh. So we got some streety kind of kind of hairdressing going on, sort of over there, and this is interesting. It is. I'm trying to think where it is, because obviously it's not, I mean, one could say it's not like traditional street, because this gentleman having his haircut is aware of us, and you know, he's doing his thing, and again, you know, talking about like titles, the title here is kind of, you know, it says 3 cigarettes for a haircut, or 3 cigarettes for a photo of a haircut. Okay, so you sort of go, well, I'll give you some cigarettes, we'll take some pictures. So it's in there. What I kind of feel while this gentleman having his head shaved is interesting, and the setup is interesting. I would prefer him not to be looking at us, right? You obviously are able to photograph these people. They're aware that you're there. They are aware that you have said to them, look, I'll give you 3 cigarettes, or, you know, can I take you for? They've gone, I'll give me 3 smokes, and well, that's cool. Right, so you could have possibly gone a little bit further with this. You know, that you want to be not necessarily connecting with this gent here having his head shaved, but there's a real, you know, the guy who's doing the shaving, you know, he's got all tats on his face, and he's got this denim gilet kind of thing with some studs on it, and, you know, all the, you know, the painting and all that kind of stuff. And if you kind of go around and you'd focused more on, let's say, the side, the profile of the guy having his head shaved, so then we could see the person who's doing the shaving, you know, and he's got all this kind of, you know, he's inked up to the max kind of stuff. And I think that would make a far more interesting photograph, and it would also, excuse me, stop me reading the hoardings behind him, right? Because this is the problem. Somebody was asking about, you know, text in images earlier, And this is an example of text that it can be distracting, right? So the first thing that I looked at this picture is African diaspora goods, denim tears, established 1619, registered trademark. So then I'm thinking, well, denim wasn't invented in 1619, and bloody hell, you were certainly not doing it. So my mind's gone off somewhere else, right? Before I even started looking at the photograph. And then I kind of come back to the guys, and I sort of scooching around, and I see the guy who's got, so he's got some docks on, and they're all painted, and it reminds me of a jacket that I gave away that I certainly shouldn't have given away, and somebody watching this knows exactly what I'm talking about. And on the back of this guy's jacket, it says, "I kill your abuser," and I go, okay, well I get that, because that's part of him. It's part of the scene of this gentleman. It's part of his aura, it's part of his presence. So that's text that works, right? The text, the African diaspora goods is text that interferes. So if you move around, right, get rid of it, focus on what's going on, the haircut and the characters that you're photographing, then you will, I think, have a far better, stronger photograph. But I really like that. And if this is by whom I think it is this in the Mission District? Chris, if this is yours, I think, it's getting a lot stronger. But then again, if it's not, yeah, Corey, I used to have a biker jacket that had like paint all over it and stuff, and I thought I looked the business. I did look the business. I was so good. Of course I looked the business. But yeah, then I gave it away to somebody in a moment of idiocy. Anyway, all right. Hey, look at that. So we've got a plague doctor coming in, and more infrared. It's infrared. It's infrared. Yeah. So this is kind of all right. So it's interesting that we were talking about the previous infrared photograph and how it has benefits and where it can work, and with that image with the landscape and the sky and stuff, it really needed something quite it needed a bit more defined clouds and what have you. Now here we have the other thing that infrared can do, which is to give you an ethereal feel, give you an ethereal look to a photograph. Now Lloyd has said too much foreground, and I'm inclined to think this feels like, yeah, you're about 10 feet away, or 10 feet too far away from this photograph, from this character. I can see it looks interesting. You got the plague doctor thing, but then he's got like a fedora. And I'm like, okay, I like that sort of thing. And he's got a walking stick there. I can just maybe see how the walking stick is that or a cane rather. It looks like there's a cane. Yeah, I think there's a cane there. So these are all little details that are very tricky to see because you are quite far away. I think if you had gone in a bit closer, the framing of the trees and the various steps of this sort of thing work really nicely. I think I think it's fine that you haven't put him in between the steps. It'd be a little bit too static in that regard. So maybe if you come around just a little bit and keep the framing thing, but it needs to be closer in. And some Lloyd mentioned like a square crop. I think this one you either need to be a lot closer, move him down in the frame and get more sky in, right? Which would be okay, so long as the figure dominated maybe like at least half of the bottom of the frame, or go landscape with the crop. Go landscape, have maybe some really open stuff, and in post, dodge that down. Dodge the outside down, so that everything that's outside of this thing of the trees becomes murky, becomes dark. It lends to the ominousness of the image, and then you have this grass, which is is got quite a light thing because of the infrared coming up, and then this guy. So it's kind of, this is a very long-winded way of saying make more of you having that etherealness, yes, which keeps coming up in thing, and making use of that benefit of the infrared. I don't mind the processing so much, but it feels like it's too uniform, right? That it's too welcoming. I think that's maybe a point. Is it? I'm not worried about this guy, right? He doesn't make me feel uneasy. He doesn't make me feel, oh, there's a little bit kind of something going on. That may be just me, but he doesn't worry me. And I think that's kind of what is falling down here a little bit. He doesn't need to be in my face and kind of woo sort of thing, but there needs to be a sense of ominousness. And I think, again, like the other one with Pieces of Press, I think going back into post with this, revisiting it in the darkroom would be, just, I think maybe worth trying it out. And if there are, because this is obviously quite clearly a shoot that you've had, you've gone to, if there are some other images where you're a bit closer with him, where he is kind of more dominant in the frame and just kind of come with me. Think like if you think Neil Gaiman's like Sandman, and the guy who used to do the covers for Sandman, I've totally forgotten his name. Oh, he was a graphic designer or illustrator that used to do these covers. There's like a little bit of story, It's a sort of thing there. So yeah, try. But overall, I think it's nice, and I like the addition of the trilby or the fedora. It looks pretty cool. How weird is this? I was just talking about flowers and ice on Friday. Okay. So this is nice. I'm immediately drawn to the fact that rather than just photograph the flowers in the ice, you've put it in an environment, which is really cool. I like that idea a lot. Nice because you've taken an idea, you've moved it up a little bit. I think you probably freaked out when the ice broke when you were trying to get it out of the thing, because there's a big crack in the block of ice. But it doesn't matter, it's part of the Guitarist charm of doing these kind of things. So with all of that, right? So if you're going to put this in an environment that makes it feel like it's in a terrarium or something like that, then possibly you could. I think one of the things you could do to kind of elevate this a little bit more is to light the forest, like the background from behind, maybe with a like a handheld flash, just a little pop, just to give it. And I don't mean like light the background so it's evenly lit. I mean light, so like if you imagine like this is the block of ice, okay, photographer's over here, that the light is coming down, poof, like here. So it lights the bottom part of the ground, maybe picks up just a little bit of some of the foliage around, but then also gives like a little backlight effect through the glass. That might work really nice. I think what you've got here is I applaud the fact that you haven't just stuck some flowers in in a piece of Tupperware with some water, and you've gone, I am now just going to go and photograph that, which is what a lot of people do, and there's kind of not a problem. But yeah, I think something like that, just to take a little bit further, take that idea. I think you've got a good idea here. It feels like there's a lump of rock in that ice as well, and so you're giving a little bit of like a diorama kind of idea, and then my son is trying to break in the door. Let me. Sorry, we have a slight 4-year-old issue. I'll be back in 2 seconds. Talk amongst yourselves for a bit. Sorry, go so high. Yeah. So no, apparently, he says, Daddy, come bath me. So before we were interrupted by Asher, sort of thing. There we go. Right. Yes, I think it's a lovely ice cube. And it really is. Yeah, you've done something here that's you're taking it beyond. So I applaud you for for going that extra mile and trying something out. But now it's time to pushing up a little bit more. So it's pretty cool. Okay. All right. So this is interesting. Oh yeah, no. He won't touch it anymore. Yeah, he used to be quite happy to try a little dab of whiskey from time to time, but now he did, and no, not interested. So here we got right. So we got some sort of quite chaotic. I said chaotic earlier. Way back at the beginning of the session, we talked about what is the point of this photograph? What are we supposed to be looking at here? And I'm not entirely sure what you're trying to tell me in this photograph. I can see there is a man with a camera at the beginning with an odd expression. Then there is like a set of teeth. Then there is a face coming out of the background, and then there's like a QR code, and so what's happening is initially when this first flashed up on the screen, I think Adam, we do. I've kind of had to limit it to one image a month. Otherwise, the first time I did this, we had a whole 60 or 70 images. And I was here for like 5 hours until midnight. It was just like crazy. So here we go. So it looks like he's wearing a weird hat. And then you realize, okay, no, they're actually, lights and things like that. So what is it that you want to photograph here? What is it that is interesting you? Are they reacting to something? And if so, I think that's what we want to see. We want to see what they are reacting to. Are you trying to photograph the man here in the foreground with his camera and what he's doing? And if so, everything else is kind of distracting from us. And I'm not sure, also I'm not sure what he's doing. He seems like he's in mid-sentence, mid-word, and it doesn't quite work. So this is a classic case of there is too much to photograph, so you're not sure what to photograph. And I think the next time you're in this kind of situation, watch what's playing out. Something is going on here, quite clearly. Watch what the situation is doing. Watch what is the story, what is this dance that's happening in front of you, and photograph the most interesting thing. If it's going to be their reactions to the thing that's happening, then focus in on those reactions. And I think you will start to get a lot stronger when you start thinking about, I'm going to focus on one person. Take this idea, like when we used to do wedding photography, and I do like documentary kind of style wedding photography, and you photograph action, reaction, because you can put them together in an album so that people can flow through it. Think about that in your street photography. This goes to anybody who photographs street photography. People are reacting to things. What are they reacting to? That's the picture. How is their reaction, right? So action, reaction. Think of these two things, because you never know what's going on. If something's going on in front of you that's amazing, turn around and what's gone behind you, because those people behind you are going to be looking at the thing that is amazing. So that's kind of yeah. Oh no, Sarah, he's. He has just done, he was like, Mummy doesn't know. I was like, something. Anyway, so there we go. All right. But you're going to get to experience it soon. All right. Little Morris Minor, really nice, I'm going to guess this is a car event or something, given the lighting and what have you. I appreciate I appreciate these kind of photographs, and I did a critique. One of the guys who I do a mentorship with, I think, mentioned, no, it was, anyway, we were looking somewhere, and he showed me a load of images of hood ornaments from American cars in the, in the 40s and 50s. And just, so there's these really overblown things, and then like Thunderbirds, and I was like, because they look great. There's Art Deco things, and so they're really interesting pieces. Cars, certainly the front part of cars, are very, they're very good as subjects for photographs, because they end up like this. They've been sculpted to look a certain way, so it's easy to photograph them and to have cool looking things. And therein lies the problem with this, is that on the face of this you go, that looks really cool, right? So I photographed it, and they look nice. This is an interesting photograph. I like Morris because also British cars are slightly different, but then that comes a problem, right? So we're seeing the lighting from the top, from all the other things that are going on, is reflecting off its bonnet. Hood for the American types. We can speak in. I'm bilingual. I can speak Americanese and English, so we're all good. So we got so the light's kind of reflecting off. Well, there's actually the headlights and then the scoop of the thing. So there's not a huge amount you can do that, like when you're out in the field. Certainly, but you can probably make change up composition to kind of hopefully minimize it, or come back at a different time of day or something. Anyway, in this photograph, the car is like a burgundy, purpley color, and I don't think the color is really lending itself to this thing. Had the Morris been bright red, right? So I'm assuming whoever photographed this is British. So think about like a Triumph. So like Triumphs, like this like a really red color. So that would be kind of cool. So if the car's in primary colors, boom, 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 right? Then I think the color works. Because this color is kind of it's not punchy. This would probably work in black and white better. You've got the chrome, which looks awesome in black and white. You've got the hood ornament, which again looks awesome in black and white. So think about that. Think about that in your processing, your color choice. If they are very punchy, neon, amazing, wow colors that suit the era and make it visually interesting, then keep it in color, obviously. But here, the purple is just it's drab. It's post-war Britain drab, and I think so black and white would be a better choice. So there we go. Wow, now this is color. So orange. All right. So we've got orange here. Orange. Why I keep clicking on the wrong thing? I'm a silly pup. All right. A polarizing filter you could try it if you have one. It works better with glass, but yeah, you never know. It may also help to deepen the colors by removing some of that glare. Okay, so this is an interesting photograph. I see where you're going with. Well done for at least trying to create a bit of depth, some layering. You've got the guy. Obviously, they're buying something. I have no idea what they are. Pretzels, sausage. I'd be intrigued to know because I haven't had dinner yet. So I'm going to look later. Can I eat them? And then you've got these guys waiting to buy one, and this man, I think, is digging in his pocket for, for some change. So there's a bit of story going around, and you've gone down a bit low, and you've made these this bold crop things. Dino, if you look in the chat, I think if I do that, yeah, Dino, if you, oh no, that's not right, sorry. If you join a member, if you support the channel, and there's a link in the description, then every month we get together and review an image. So the link is in the description. So the crop is all very interesting. What I am missing is something for us to follow through on. Okay, so we talk about action, reaction. So the action is we've got the sausage. Well, I'll call them sausage. We've got the sausages on this bike sort of thing, and we've got the queue of people waiting to purchase them, and you've got somebody who's reaching into his pocket to get some money. What we need is a payoff, right? So we've got the man at the front wants to buy one. We've got the thing that they want to buy, and I can see just through the reflection, because I'm hunting for it, the payoff. He's passing over whatever it is. But that's kind of, so this is the whole thing with layering, is that, one thing, right? One, right? You're taking the viewer on a journey through it, and either those layers exist as their own individual little stories, like Alex Webb does it, or in this case, you are building up a story to have a payoff. Man waiting thing, and then the sale. But the sale we can't see, right? So that's this is why layering is such. It will absolutely, certainly in street photography, like elevate your images to such a stronger level, right? That they will be wow, right? But it is, holy hell, is it hard to do, because you're having to juggle so many elements. So it takes a lot of practice, and it takes a lot of getting used to the scenes and how they play out and stuff like that. So well done on trying the things. Well done on being brave enough to also to show this and getting some feedback. But it just needs something in there. I don't think the problem with this is necessarily exposure, although I think you are struggling a bit. It is very bright. I can see this is the middle of the day, and the pavement is burning out. Like it's gone, I'm not in this picture at all, just you go on without me, right? So you're going to struggle a little bit when it is this middle of the day kind of thing. And maybe what a lot of photographers do to counter this is they are happy to let their shadows go black. Okay, like Alex Webb again, and some other people. There's a photographer who I've been mentoring, he does lots of very black shadows and stuff like that. And it can be hackneyed, but I would rather have deeper, darker shadows than blown out highlights and things like that. Dark shadows give some shape, they give some feeling, they give some form to your photographs. Blown out parts of the image are just a blown out part of the image. They don't contribute at all. So there we go. It does look hot. Oh, it's a whole sort of thing, Yeah, somebody's doing pretzels. I mean, they might be, but I don't know. I get a feeling for sausage, but if those were sausages, they would be like, actually covered in grease. But anyway, right. So there we go. All right. Here we go. So this is. Okay, well this is, I'm trying to think, what is this? Okay, and again, what are we photographing here? What are you photographing, Stu? And this is, if you were sitting next to me, that would be my question, is what is going on? Is this a shopping mall? Okay, so if so, then what are you actually photographing? Are you photographing the architecture of the mall, or are you photographing this father with his child pushing a buggy, pram, stroller? All the words are coming out tonight, right? Which is it? And that's kind of, because if it's the man pushing the stroller, then and you wanted to have him kind of with the the leading lines and stuff like that, then I would put him in the middle, like just like in this case. We talked earlier about being on the nose and stuff like that. Just put him in the middle, because this one I think you could get away with being oh yeah, he's right in the middle, and it would frame him quite nicely. And then usually, I think it will give a bit of structure to it. At the moment, it feels like you're trying to take a picture of this hallway, and this dude has strolled into your shot, and it's kind of, it's not working, right? And it's always a hard thing to sort of balance. So think about this. What are you photographing? What are you trying to convey? What is the message here, right? It is so important, because otherwise you end up not saying anything. This image doesn't convey anything to me. I'm struggling to feel what it is that you are driving at. Now, the exposures and things I think are fine. I mean, it is going to be what it is. You know, there's nothing. And also the lighting in here is obviously one of those malls that have gone like, hey, we're all natural light and stuff. So there aren't even like pools of light you can work with. You've got to deal with the sunlight coming through, and then the shadows on, you know, the shade on the left hand side, on the HMV, what have you. But yeah, what are we seeing? What are you photographing? Okay. It's going to be a theme tonight, isn't it? What are we photographing? It's. I'm sorry. Again, if you are trying to layer things, okay, then I applaud the effort, because you've got the boat in the front, and then you've got the, you know, thing what make row go. You know the thing, the rowing, not the rowing boat, the sculling sort of team and stuff. And there's some people sculling on the river, and it looks like a person, you know, in the jetty. So I get it. Maybe you're trying to imply, you know, there's busyness. You know, this is a Saturday afternoon at the park or whatever. There's like little boats around. There's people getting ready to push off and to go and scull. There are people in there already doing their thing, and you know, there's activity. So it's just business. So I appreciate. I kind of get that. What I'm not entirely sold on. Well, actually, you know, I was going to say something about the boat in front. But the more I kind of talk about it now, the more it's like, actually, that boat in front is, you know, without it, without that, the power boat at the front, or, you know, the motorized launch, this is a nothing photograph. But you're starting to get some more in here. There's something coming together, and I can't quite put my finger on how you could really get this stronger, because I feel there is something here, and maybe some people in the chat would be able to kind of, you know, say, okay, look, you know, maybe tried this or tried that or something like that. I wonder, you know, given that it is a busy thing, and I think, you know, the people out on the river, so let's split the image down. You've got the foreground, which we're kind of, okay, well, let's sort of go. Then you've got the middle ground with this crew next to the jetty, and they're sort of like, they're doing their thing. And then there's some stuff out in the river, so they're kind of, but I think the river stuff is kind of not really contributing too much. So if you come back around the side, that I think what is bothering me is that the boat at the front, the motor launch at the front, is going horizontal across the frame, like this, and then everything else is going like this way through, which isn't bad, because you can have like nice little zigzags and things like that. But I keep coming back to the team at the jetty. I feel like there's something in there. You know, they're getting ready. The cock's at the back. I don't know if she's doing whatever his coxers do. I don't know. Does anybody know? What does a cock actually do apart from shout at them? It's just like, you know, go left, go right. You know, what have you. So I think, you know, if you're trying to layer shots and give a sense of busyness, then yeah, I think you're heading in the right direction. This one isn't landing for me, and I'm sorry that I can't put my finger on why it isn't, and because that's rubbishy feedback, is to say it doesn't work and whatever. But something is not. It may come to me later on, but yeah, I will sort of have a think about it. Maybe I'll sort of see. But yeah, I mean, you know, well done on at least making the effort to again layer. And anybody who's been doing the layering thing, I applaud you, because I'm terrible at it. Du-du-dum. Okay, so this is, do you know, funny enough, instantly I kind of thought like HCB, so, you know, Cartier-Bresson, but then I sort of changed it up. This image reminds me of a photograph that I've seen a little while ago of like shadows. You know, we've been talking about it. We started with shadows, and this one is here. The thing that works here in this photograph for me is this man. They're playing like, well, they've got ping pong bats, but I don't know. They're not playing ping pong. Is that, yeah? That's where the image is. That's this guy and his shadow on the floor. This is where the photograph exists. It's that part here. And Ivan, thank you. Greetings back to you in Slovakia. Yeah, the photograph here is this man. You know, this afternoon by the river, and you know, there's things going on and stuff. I get it. That's, you know, that's kind of cool. But again, this feels like it's a little bit just lost. I think, you know, we want to focus in on something, the life of what's going on. You're photographing the whole thing to show the whole thing. I think this would be stronger if we look at what's available to you. Okay, so we've got this guy playing ping pong or whatever it is, and I can just see the ball hiding up in the tree with his shadow. So great, love the shadow, wonderful thing. So he's one possibility. Then we have in behind, let's just say it's his wife, and then behind her there is somebody sunbathing. All right. Now, if you put the sunbather as like kind of the foreground, and there's quite a lot going on behind him, that's an option there. We've got then down by the sunbather's feet. If you go down towards the water's edge, looks like there's two people. Looks like they're on their phones, and then there's two figures in the water. So you could have photographing over the top of them, so they've got their phones, and then behind their phones, there's the two lads, maybe their boyfriends or what have you, in the water playing around, right? So think about that kind of thing when you're confronted with scenes like this. That, you know, there might be a whole bunch of other things that you could photograph, you know, or if you're going to photograph this man playing paddle bat, whatever you want to call it, then focus on him exclusively. You know, just him, his shadow, which is looking great. He's obviously energetic. He's, you know, doing all sorts of things. So yeah, I think that'd be lekker, as they say in South Africa, which for everybody else just means, yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be sweet like a lemon. There we go. More, it's all seaside activities and things. So we've got some paragliders and things. Now this is great because I have, looking at this, yeah, we talked about deep shadows, and I'm glad somebody showed some deep shadows here. I know that they can be a divisive thing. Some people like them, some people are like, whatever. And I think that's fine because there's a time and a place to use them. And certainly what happens, I feel that as long as they are used to enhance things in the photograph, then they are fine. They serve their purpose. Because look at this image, right? So the man with this, I don't even know what this is. It looks like some sort of weird paragliding kite thing. It looks like the sort of thing I might try and end up in A&E or the ER with a broken leg or something. But he's in shadow, right? And so is a lot of this kite thing. But then it makes the reds and the blues of the sail sections pop out. It makes the blue of the sky stronger because you've got all this black for it to contrast against, right? Shadows, black shadows, things like that make colors go, especially primary colors, just go boom, right? So think about how you can, sort of work with that. So this, you've got this hazy sky, sea, and I think it would be easy to blow a lot of this stuff out. And if you were going to capture the highlights and get the shadows, then the sky becomes a wishy-washy, washed out thing. The birds and all that kind of stuff contribute to the idea of flight. Now, somebody in the comment is talking, or comments, are talking about a little bit more beach. I actually think the beach is I think it's the worst thing in here because it doesn't contribute to the image at all. We don't really need a sense of place with this necessarily. I don't mind the mountain or the hills in the background because of that seaside misty spray air that you get. And if you'd cropped it a little bit more, it would come down a little bit lower. It's always better. Like, so change the angle. So he's a little bit more higher up in the frame. Not higher up in the frame. A bit more. If you get closer and then photograph up him a little bit more, you could probably crop out actually most of the beach, but then just get a little bit of the hills in there, which at least would ground it just a little bit and give you a sense of like, do you know what, you want to join the kites, and you want to join the birds, and you want to leap off mountaintops. This is the thing for you, right? So interesting shot, and I think a good example of how you can take an exposure to, is that what they're called? Wing foils. They definitely look like something I think I should steer well clear of. So that they have this kind of, this thing. This could be just a humdrum picture. I think a lot of people would have gone, hi, I sell the wing foil. Let's get a picture of this. But you've, I think, gone a little bit further with it. So nice. But again, it just needs, I think you need to be just more kind of, you've got the idea, then you need to refine it and be more aware of what's going on the edges of the picture. Have you noticed? Oh, we've got quite a few. Right. Okay, so so we got the traditional. I'm sorry. I was about to say we got the traditional thing. So there's a little girl in some puddles, playing in the rain. It's one of those kind of photographs that technically it's executed pretty well. The exposure's on. I think the depth of field choice, everything here is pretty fine. The color, the yellows against the green, and then the raiding. It's my pleasure, Eric. It's all nice. And that's the problem. It's nice, right? And there's nothing wrong with nice. But if you're going to do nice, then make a bit more of it, right? So this little girl, so I'm saying girl, but I don't know. She's walking through this puddle with the rain, and the reflection in that puddle is lovely, and it will look lovely because of the environment that you're in with all sorts of stuff. And so make the puddle more of a thing. Make her more of a thing with the puddle. Put her in an environment. If she likes to splash around in these things, get her to splash in the water. Because at the moment you've got a lovely environment. You've got a lovely model, for want of a better word. Your technical abilities are perfectly capable of doing all the kind of cool things. But she's not doing anything. She's just walking. She's not interacting. She's not even walking and thinking. It's just kind of, she's just walking. Get her to do something. And it doesn't need to be a grand gesture. It doesn't need to be like a mass thing. But even if you said, why don't you just throw some stones into a puddle or a stick, or you could splash in the puddle, or just something that, you know, if you were photographing this for a parent, let's assume that you wanted to do this as, you know, if you do this as a living, you want to do family shoots and stuff. I would struggle to sell this. I would really struggle to sell this photograph. The parents may like it, but I would, from a sales point of view, I would be reticent to show this because it's hard to see who she is. Firstly, parents do quite like to see the faces of their children, and she doesn't seem like she's actually doing anything, and that's kind of the thing. You know, it's one of the things. But outside of that, you know, you're spot on. If you are doing these, you know, pictures like this for, you know, for sale, that's fine. Just a little heads up, it is a lot harder to sell big portrait orientation images than it is landscape. So if, you know, you're not going to make money selling 8x10s, you're going to make money selling 40-inch, right? And a 40-inch like this as a portrait orientation, that's pretty big, right? It looks odd, but a 40-inch like this will work quite nicely. See, textbook stuff about color and things. You know, it's, yeah. Again, you know, we talked earlier about you know, shadows and contrasts and colors and things of that nature. And this reminds me of you know, the one we looked earlier with the leaves. And I really, you know, I like it. I like this feel. You know, these red. I'm assuming they're maple leaves. You know, so Canadian. What I'm kind of not entirely sold about is the composition aspect of this. That I like this. The leaves casting shadows on the other leaves is cool. The left-hand side of the image is great because it's filled with the leaves. And we get to the right-hand side of the image and there's lots of blue, there's lots of sky. And it feels unbalanced like that. And you know, it was with the other parts of the tree that have denser foliage. So we have more of this interesting play of shadows from things because of the, you know, obviously because of the very strong directional sunlight. So that's kind of the thing, you know, it's like you've got a good idea. But it's sometimes having a good idea isn't quite enough. You need to refine it. You need to really push on with it. You need to take the embryo of that idea, let it grow for a little bit. Now you can do this by saying, "Oh, okay, I love it. I've seen the shadows and stuff. Can I just take a little wander around this tree? Can I look around this wood and see if there's anything else here?" The lighting that you had, the idea, you know, there's a throwaway comment I made a little while ago that there's no such thing as bad light. It's just it's light that doesn't suit the photograph you want to take. And a lot of people go, you know what, harsh midday light sucks, but it doesn't. Look what you can do with it. But yeah, that right-hand side of the composition is just, it's letting the side down because it's taking the idea that starts on the left-hand side, peters out as we go across on the right-hand side of the frame. So I really like it. And again, blacks, the reds are like vibrant and makes the blues vibrant as well. So really, really nice. I would just hesitate. There's something, if you've been in here and you've done some posts on it, there's something odd going on around the edges of your leaves. There's like a little white halo. So there's something, if you boost it up like a blue or something, it's probably because it's made the blue a lot bluer against the white of the thing, so you get this kind of weird halo. He says, I don't know, but it's something. Sweegum, something. Asia. Oh, Japanese Acer. Oh, okay. Right. All right. Okay. Let's see. So we got. I'm just reading it. Okay. So airports, London Heathrow Terminal 2. Okay. So an interesting photograph. I say that a lot, don't I? An interesting photograph. photographed in an interesting manner for interesting people. And another little maple leaf in there. There's Air Canada in there. Ooh. Hey! Part of the previous image is trying to get into this one. It says I want to be in this one as well. Yeah, great. You know, you've seen something going on. And I have to say, I find airports exceptionally interesting to photograph. There are some very, very exciting opportunities for images, and I like what you're doing here. You've got this kind of idea of like segments that are going tung 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 tung, and then in the middle you have obviously just the frames. Now, what I'm finding is a problem is the fact that despite you've got this really cool idea of segment, people, segment, all the terminals, in the background are in focus. And they are detracting from the silhouettes of the people in the center panel, if you want to call it that. And that's a problem, right? I think if the clouds were out of focus, you know, the clouds we have top and bottom, that's okay, because they're still going to be clouds that can be recognizable. But we know this is an airport because we will recognize the shapes. We don't need to see the planes in focus. And because they're in focus, they are too busy. It's too distracting. And I can't focus on the people, the faceless people, the shapes, the silhouettes of the innumerable travelers, right? And that's kind of where we're sort of missing here. So think about that next time. I'm sure that you could just, to go and recreate the photograph, just, buy yourself a plane ticket and go fly somewhere just for the lols. I'm not sold on having the roof stuff at the bottom of the frame. I think that you've got a good photograph. And again, it's probably because there's the roof being reflected from whatever you've done at the bottom. But it's just not quite. Now, sorry, I'm just looking at something. No, okay, sorry. I was second guessing myself. I will look for that. Thank you, Lloyd. Yeah, Susan, thank you ever so much. That's very, very kind of you. I was going to say, Stuart, it does look like a composite. And I was trying to look at it and I'm not entirely sure that it is. But it possibly is. But I think it's one of those things where it's not so blatantly obvious. And the reason I thought, well, maybe it is, but it isn't, is that the clouds don't match up. So it's not just a simple flip job, right? But irrespective, I think otherwise we'll get lost in talking about technicalities of how people do it. I think the biggest thing is holding back is that that depth of field choice is not right for with the planes in the background. We will know, we can recognize a plane, we can pick out a plane as a very blurry object. We don't need it to be distinctly obvious. So there we go. Have you noticed that I do this every time I look at a picture and we go to the next one, I go, there we go, and then I sing. Okay, so, and then I do so. Here we have two guys fishing, and the bloke with his vape and that big smoke thing and stuff, that's the photo. The photos are it's on the right hand side. The left hand side isn't really giving me anything. It's not doing anything. They're not actually fishing. I mean, they're just kind of standing there with their rods doing their thing. So they're not kind of engaged with it. If they were leaning over the balustrade or the piece of wall, then they're more kind of thing. But I know you're giving them some context. But that context feels like it's a bit lost. It feels like there's not too much going on, and certainly the guy in the background is fairly disinterested, and the guy on the right who is involved with you is so, he's like right over the edge. He's like barely in the frame. And I would like to see kind of more of him. More, he can either come in a bit closer and something like that, and then lose some of this stuff on the left. This image isn't hanging on the fact that they're fishermen, right? So it's not crucial that you give them a place, right? So it's this guy doing his thing. Do you know them? You know, are they friends of yours or something like that? If they're friends of yours, try and get, you know, it to be more kind of less snapshotty and more kind of like them doing something, you know, casting or doing their bait or whatever. Just something, because at the moment, if you're going to photograph somebody with a giant cloud of vape around them, then photograph the person with a giant cloud of vape around them, not everything else. So. I was like looking around going, what is the point of this photograph? And then there it is, it's hiding down in the bottom. So we have here a picture. It says log 2-66. I'm not entirely sure about this. Again, that you've got a log that's like completely in the middle of the frame, which is more or less out of focus. You've got all this stuff going on, right? And there's another bit of a tree, there's some moss and there's some leaves, and then down in the corner, there's a little doe, a deer, a female deer, right? We hope. Well, I sound like a dork. But it's like down here. It's like, hello, I just popped in, say hello, right? And it's looking you in the eye. It's going, I'm not entirely sure about you with your camera. Yeah, weird person trying to photograph this log, right? I'm not saying you need to make the photograph the whole doe, but she is so down in the corner and hidden away that I think 90% of the people who would look at this would miss her. Which is the point, because that's what she's supposed to do. She's camouflaged, right? But people are going to look at the picture and go, boom, 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 and just dismiss it, because people I'm giving you feedback on this photograph, so I am invested in looking at it, right? And it's only when I find the so what I think would be a better way of handling this is to bring the deer a little bit more into the frame, but at the same time a little bit less in the frame, right? Make it, you know, we talked earlier about, you make the viewer go, wow, I'm so pleased that I saw that, right? See how kind of excited I got when I seen the deer, right? Bring it around, maybe change something up just a little bit, put the deer in a place where somebody's likely to find it, and then frame everything around that deer. And I think you would ever have a great photograph. At the moment, there's a whole, but like 9/10 of the image is, what, right? And then you've got the doe. So start with the doe, build up around it in a way that still gives you the idea that you're trying to go for, which I believe is that you are trying to trick the viewer into missing the doe. But in doing so, you also run the risk of having people just dismiss your photograph. So you kind of need to telegraph it just a little bit. You need to, either have something that's a leading line towards the doe or something, just so the viewer's going to go, I see what you're doing there. Oh, you are very tricksy. so I hope that helps. But yeah, I think, you want to just, if that's your intent, I applaud it. But your approach, I think, is gone a little bit astray. Now, this is the kind of stuff that's right up my street. There's a child at the door again. I can hear it. Yeah, he's down there. He's trying to. I will be back in 2 seconds. If you guys have just talk amongst yourself, think about how lovely this photograph is because I like it. Okay, you can sit with me for a little bit. Okay, but I'm talking to people online. Okay, all right. So you need to be quiet. Okay.
I can't stay here for.
You can.
I can only stay here for 1 minute because Mummy's bringing me Haribo.
So you've just told everybody on the internet that you have Haribo for dinner. So internet, this is Asha, and Asha, this is internet, right? So we're looking at this photograph. Please don't pull on that, right? So we're looking at this man's photograph, right? So that's pretty cool, isn't it? We've got some. Yeah. So he's got some. No, he's not poo. Okay, so his word is poo at the moment. Right, so you're going to go with Mummy now?
Monday.
Right, go on. Okay, just let's not have the argument. Okay, right, so we got some very nice some shadows and textures and what have you here. And I really like the approach. Can you, right, if you're going to go with Mummy, then I'll come through now and give you a story, Ash. Sorry about that, everybody. Like he wants to see what's going on. Yeah, so the shadows I think are really nice. Asha, go with Mummy. Right, I will come down. Right. Asha, go with Mummy. Right. So it's sorry, I do apologise about that. So we've got, we've got these shadows. And a sort of an industrial-ish urban landscape, which are really, really nice. It's got a depth to it because we've got some shadow at the front, and then the middle part, and then shadow, and then the concrete wall, this bypass. It kind of put me in mind of sort of Joy Division songs and things of that nature. What I'm in two minds about is the crop that you've got here. I would like to see this also as a landscape, just to make. I'm in two minds. I think if I was confronted with this, I would be like, is it a portrait? Is it a landscape, or is it a square? And looking at square. There's a line in the concrete of the road or the tarmac about a third of the way up. If you cropped it square like that, how does that sort of feel? Does it feel a bit more balanced? Oh, do you know he's generally generally he's very good, but it's his bedtime now, and he's like, come and sit with me and do all sorts of things. Yeah, this feels like the crop. The crop is something, and again, it comes down to like a personal thing. I'm feeling the square crop, but then again, that might just be my bias towards square cropping. But as I say, Rob, it's this. I think would work. I'd like to see this as part of like a series of a kind of like urban landscape, devoid of people. I think the fact that it is devoid of people, devoid of anything else, certainly enhances the image. There's really not much I feel is terribly wrong with it, apart from the crop, and that's not ideal feedback, but it feels like a crop. It's like the leaves that we looked at the beginning. It's a subtle thing, and maybe you're often looking for something to fix, just for the sake of looking for something to fix, and that I think that's an issue that a lot of people can struggle with, because how do we know when it's enough? How do we know when it is finished? How do you know when it's done? Right? There's always a danger that we're kind of overthinking in it. And this is a good example of me kind of going, I need to find something that I could go change that beyond the crop, but I can't. Yeah, I like it. There we go. Yeah, it is if the perils of working from home. but hey ho. Yeah. And this man definitely does not work from home. Doodle-doo-doo-doo-doo. Okay, right. So we've got, it looks, I'm going to, I was about to say it looks like a guitar tech, but I don't think he is. I think he's the actual, he's the guitarist. So, you know, so interesting that you've chosen to photograph him flat on to the camera. So, or the guitar is flat on to the camera. Because while we're getting his face, I'm not getting anything of what he does, because his guitar is at right angles to us, and then there's the mic stand in the way, so we can't even see his hand, and you know, obviously, so I like he's in mid noodle jam, whatever you want to call it. The lighting, I think you're okay with this. You know, these kind of venues, the lighting can be a real nightmare. But his position is wrong, right? You either need to be a couple of steps. In fact, I think you need to be a couple of steps over to the left, because you need to get that mic stand somewhere. I think you're feeling like, oh, the mic stand, he's not singing, so the mic stand's in the way. So if I put the mic stand in his body, then it becomes less of a thing outside. And I get where you're coming from. But the mic stand right now is hiding everything. If you come around and the mic stand is off to the side of it, I think we can forgive that, because we understand the environment, that he's playing live, that you can't just go up on stage and say, excuse me, right, can you just, I want to move your mic stand. You can include this in, because it is part, just as much as you've included his rack of guitars, right? You can include these things because they are part of his environment. They're okay to be there. You know, it's not like a tree growing out of somebody's head, or, you know, there's branches and things, and that's, you know, it's that sort of thing. So, you know, if you move over a bit to the left, in terms of your processing, you've got a nice, exposure, things like that. But the background is awfully busy, and that's fine, because again, it's a bar. But what you can do to counter that is just, I would like you to burn in the edges of the frame. Not a huge amount, it doesn't need to go to black, but you need to have a darker tone around the edge, like a vignette, but not necessarily a vignette, right? Because it stops the eye wandering off the frame, but it's also going to make it feel a little bit more like a club, because, you know, he's a lit person in a darker environment. To give it a bit of mood, but yeah, you can't see the guitar. He's a guitarist. I want to see the guitar. It's like Joy Division. I get a real Joy Division vibe from some of these pictures tonight. Here are the young men. Boom, 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 boom. So this is the B side to the picture with the to this one. Yeah, that's the front album. That's the album cover. This is the B. This is the reverse with the track listing. So again, you know, these kind of ideas, you know, photographing the puddle and flipping the image and what have you, they're quite fun. It's certainly as a useful exercise as a beginning photographer, because it teaches you to see things slightly differently. I like the perspective that you've done here. I think it would have been easy to just go, I'm going to have a more traditional crop, as it were, or perspective. And the fact that you've got a very wide angled perspective, I think you've got the right lens choice. That's a good thing to do. Great sort of way of getting it. Again, there isn't a whole heap that I feel you could really change with this. It's kind of one of those shots where they are what they are. There's, you know, you're not going to make it like hugely amazing. I think if you want to be overly pedantic about it, okay, so on the left hand side of the puddle, down sort of this area here, there is this, there's a building or whatever it is. And if you change your perspective just a little bit, maybe you continue the sky into that puddle, so it'd be a larger, wider thing as opposed to this piece of black building coming out there and intruding on the thing. Whereas the stuff on the right hand side, it looks like there's some chimney pots and a telephone. It's less. I think it's less intrusive than a big lump of black. So it's an interesting. I keep saying it's interesting. I'm sorry. It seems to be my hang up. Not my hang up. My fallback word. Everything is interesting. Isn't that interesting? I have an interesting fallback word. So yeah, I feel that it's a photograph that it is what it is, but it's nice, and I don't mean that in a derogatory sense. It's sometimes even just the most simple, basic little kind of trickery play things can just look nice, and there's nothing wrong with that. And it's just just understanding that sometimes you want to create haute cuisine, and sometimes you want to create just a nice like comfort food. And these I think feel like, for me, it's sort of like almost like a photographic version of comfort food. But they certainly evoked a feeling in me when I had just recently seen two images. One of them was a musician, and one of them which gave me an idea of like a lifeless, sort of concrete jungle conurbation kind of thing. So yeah. Well, hey, edit. I love the words, the titles, like edit. This is 220515, 165701. Edit. So somebody's making a lot of edits. So we talked about depth of field, and here we're getting there. That there is I'm going to call these tulips, but they're probably not. There's a tulip at the front which is in focus. I think pretty much for the most part, maybe just be my screen, or the fact that we are seeing a number of things, and then the image, sorry, I've drawn a complete blank. The tulips in the background, that they're getting progressively more out of focus. Now, like a lot of photographs that we talked about tonight, that where you have great, because from a lighting point of view, from a technical point of view, everything here is pretty spot on, right? There's no real complaints about this. I think from a composition point of view, you're great. The color is lovely. Again, we're talking about these darker things, making colors more vibrant. Look at the green on the stem of the tulip at the front. It is luminescent. It is beautiful, rich and vibrant because it's got darker shadows to contrast it with. What I'm disappointed about is that the main star of the show, this tulip at the front, is not the brightest tulip in the box. The brightest one is the one that is second in line. It needs to come down. It needs to be taken down a little bit, right? Because it's competing with the guy that we want to see. This lovely lady at the front is being upstaged by that bright tulip in the middle. Boom. And I guess especially because it's out there by itself against all of the background. It's not like the others where they form like a uniform backdrop. This guy is standing out there going, whoa, look at me. All right. So it's so either you can change the composition so you don't have that single tulip, or you can maybe bend it out of the way, or you could just change the composition, or you can tone it down a bit. If you do want to include that tulip as a thing, then it needs to be in focus as well, or a little bit more in focus than it is, and toned down a bit. And while we're on it, this little thing here, just kind of take that down, because it is, again, it's drawing our eye away from the thing. But this is so close to being like really, really just, yeah, nice. Do you know, we often don't. I don't often see portraiture on here. I mean, I know we had the angel image earlier, and here, you know, we get another portrait, but yeah, very rare. So if you know, my background's in portraiture, so I enjoy looking at portraits, but there we go. So so we've got these two ladies who are sort of posing, and this is obviously in a studio. This is obviously shot on high key. I don't know the background to this. Is this a fashion shoot? Is it just a portrait for portrait's sake? You know, so what's going on here? So I'm going to approach this as if it were just a portrait, right? So there's nothing more to it. So it's not for beauty or whatever, or earrings. So we're going to talk about the earring first. That earring is it's lovely, it's interesting, but you need to tone it down just a touch. It's always a thing. Earrings are a real kind of bugaboo, because think about, you know, we are drawn to this. So the girl on the right's face first, and then we see her earring, and it's only later then we see the girl on the left, her face. Now, one of the things that is extremely difficult to with dark skin tones, African skin tones, however you want to refer to it, is that the shadows on them will disappear like so quickly. Okay, so now that if you're quite happy with that, then that's fine. I think in this case, and again, we may not be seeing the full version of this image, but there's a lot of place where I would like to see just a little bit more shadow detail, because it's gone very dark, and you can do that with just some fill. It feels like there's one big sort of light source coming over here, so maybe a polyboard or something over here would just kick back into the shadow. So just be aware of that with African skin tones, that all this kind of stuff down here, it just, because there's no light, it just goes to blackness, like really, it just very quickly, and in this kind of image, which I think has more of a lighter sort of feel as opposed to a very dark, moody thing, it becomes disjointed in the whole thing, you know. So let's see. So with their expressions, there's something going on. You know, there's something. It's always tricky with portraits. You don't want dead eye. You don't want just like, I'm just looking. I don't want to be here. So I was like, you want something. I always find it's interesting to give the people who you are photographing like a scenario. Give them something to think about. You know, get them to engage with the session. Not necessarily like you must do this, you must do that, but get them to go into a mindset, and that gives expressions. If they're sisters, so let's assume they're sisters, then this pose is kind of that's fine. But what we have here again is a huge issue about, you know, we're talking about things that compete with the main subject of a photograph. Look at the girl on the left in isolation, right? There isn't anything really competing with her face. Her face is lit, she's turned her face towards the light, she's got some lovely cheekbone action going on here, it's all really good. You know, one or two little pedantic kind of things, like, you know, maybe she could turn a little bit so she's not breaking the profile of the face with the eyes just on the edge and thing. But there's nothing really competing with her face. You know, her hand is down here, it's a little bit further from her face, so it's not dominating. And also because of the African skin tone, it's not a big bright thing, right? But then look at the lady on the right. Look at the girl, right? She's on her hands. Okay. Now, even, you know, for a Caucasian skin tone, I don't really want fingers and hands down here. It's a little bit close to a face, right? Because what happens is you start looking at the eyes and you're counting all the fingers, and it's a whole bunch of things. But with her skin tone, because she has the African dark skin tone, her fingers have got these, her fingernails are light, so they stand out. They're like, wow, they're right there, you know. And the same with, you know, her, because she's also pressing down, it's made the skin tone lighter there. And what do you see? You see face on the left, you say face on the right, and then this spider hand coming through. It's like, you know, like we've all seen that at kind of, you know, at weddings, you know, hand coming over the shoulder, just divorced from everything, just, you know, and it's kind of, it's that. I thank you for showing me a portrait. I love seeing portraits. I think this one, there's a lot that is fundamentally, you know, right with it, but yeah, a little bit of kicker, or a little bit of fill, and I would suggest you use like a bounce back rather than an actual fill light, especially if you're kind of new to portraiture, because it just makes life a lot easier, and it looks also a bit more sort of natural. And that earring needs to go, but just, you know, unless you're going to make a big deal of that earrings, try and ask your models to not have giant earrings or earrings that are very visually interesting, because they could be very distracting. And the same goes for rings and things. If people are wearing rings and watches, get rid of them. A wedding ring's okay, but any other rings or things like that, you want to keep it simplistic. And here we have, you know, talking about, you know, light, shadow, shade things. You can see that the high-vis jacket is pointing out there. It's huge. What I'm finding here is immediately my real issue with that is that, excuse me, all this grass in the foreground is out of focus, okay? And now there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but when it's the brightest section of the image like this, and then there is nothing in the background that is really capturing our attention beyond the colors of the lamppost and this guy's jacket, it feels odd. It feels like it's not quite, something is not right about it. It makes me feel odd. And again, I mentioned earlier that I'm sorry that sounds like a very wishy-washy kind of thing to say, but it's like a gut feeling, and quite often photographs and images we take come down to a gut feeling, that you look at the images and you go, does this feel right for me? Right now, look at this again, you know, all of you look at it again, does it feel right for you? And the photographer who took this, does it feel right? What is it you're trying to convey? Right, if you're trying to make like a juxtaposition between the grass and this light and stuff, and then there's deep shadow stuff in the background, that's fine, but then I feel the grass would need to be in focus, right? You can often get away with the backgrounds being not so much in focus, but things that are very close to us visually, like physically close to us, more often than not really want to be in focus. It's just, I don't know, there's something about it. It just feels like a natural thing for it to be in focus like that. In regards to this stuff in the background, there isn't really anything going on. Are you looking to photograph the shape of the building, the way that there is, because there seems to be like a black X thing. If that's what you're looking to photograph, then I think you need less of the grass in front. It's you know, find that you want to include some foreground interest, but it feels like there's two photos going on here, and neither of them are really landing. So try and be a little bit more deliberate about, again, what it is you're trying to photograph, how you're trying to convey that message. The little fire hydrant thingamabob gufter thing over here, yeah, there's just gate crash in the party. Just try and do something a little bit different with it like that, and you'll see how we go. Okay, so I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, is this a reflection? Is this a shadow drag? But then you go, well, it's not a shadow drag, because if it was shadow drag, then how can half a bit? So I was about to say interesting. I wonder if I could do like a whole crit session and not say interesting. So that is wholly uninteresting. Yeah, this kind of, it gives me a sense of something. There's something going on that is slightly different. I would hesitate to say like cyberpunky, because it's not. But it's got the right hand side of the image has a kind of an odd ethereal, not quite sure what's going on vibe, right? The left hand side of the image is not really contributing at all. I think up to the edge of the brick work that's all lit very strongly, everything to the left hand side of that is kind of superfluous. It doesn't need to be there, just as much as the top little sign that's in here doesn't need to be here. We can come down, and the person behind the brickwork, in or out, one or the other. I think they're not really in there. But I like either if this is a reflection or if it's something. What is it? What's going on here? Can you give me more of that? I like what's going on in the right hand side of the frame. This blurry motion is shot through a window or a mirror or some. I can't quite put my finger. I'm sure if you were to tell me, I would then go, of course. Like often we see these things, the answer is so obvious, but we tend to overthink things. I like that, so the guy on the right hand side, the figure on the right hand side is moved from a person we can recognize into an ethereal figure. And I'd love to see that side of things. Ethereal figures. The city as a ghostly place. And I don't mean ghostly as spooky, I mean like the echoes of people around him. And that's what I kind of get with this. Is like the figure in the middle of the three is kind of half ethereal. The figure on the right is kind of totally ghostly. So that's pretty cool, but it's shoved off to the side of the frame. So show us what it is that we're looking at, right? Frame it nicely. That would be so cool. All right, so I'm just taking a moment. I like architecture. A nice juxtaposition between a very traditional building, a very unusual sort of architectural flair, if you want to go, and then a round. So you've got very straight lines, curving lines, and then sort of like pop, this kind of hacked out bit in the corner there, and I can see where you're going with it. I think it's nice to see that change, that that play between the shapes and the styles, and I appreciate that's why you've left in the sky on the left to imply to really drive home the fact that image, that building in the background is a curve, just so we know it's a curve and it's a change. What I kind of feel is, unfortunately, and there's nothing you can do about this, that is that another building in between the front two? There's like a grey bit down the bottom. If it's another building, or is it part of the cylindrical building? It ruins the flow. You've got building, and then something, right? It's ruining this lovely, movement through. And again, I appreciate there's nothing you can do unless that is another building, and maybe you could have moved your perspective just a little bit to kind of hide it. But it may not have been possible at all. But I do think it's well spotted, and it just goes to show that sometimes you can find juxtaposition and tension between elements. We're in the most unlikely of places. We tend to think of skyscrapers especially as monolithic and solid. Then when you find these odd parts in them, then you can play with them so much. And I strongly applaud you for at least seeing the possibilities here. I don't necessarily feel that it's and it's simply because that grey bit in the left hand side. There's something about it, I can't quite put my finger on. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't land for me. I don't know why. And if we're looking from if we are looking from a processing point of view, and this may be the air quality of the place you're in. This may be Southeast Asia, so lots of like hazy kind of quality. That building in the background looks very hazy. It looks very washed out. This IPA is alcohol free, so I can't even blame the booze. It is because it's not booze. It's simply my tongue-tied, twisted, earthbound misfitness sort of thing. Also been talking non-stop now for almost many hours. So the air quality is like a hazy sort of thing, and it makes that building in the background feel a little bit washed out, like it's a thing. And I don't know what you could do to counter that, because if you make it darker, something like that, it may be a little bit more contrast might have just helped it, because it feels out of odds with the other two. They feel quite defined, whereas the one in the background feels a little bit more rough around the edges, if that kind of makes sense. But yeah, it is. It's lovely. Yeah, it's been good. I mean, thank you once again, everybody, because that's it. We're through with all the oh, excuse me. Through with all the videos. I'm just going to go feedback. There we go. Right. So I'm going to sit up, and you can see I haven't shaved today. So yes, it's been really great to see all your photographs. As we have pointed out, it's really thing. These images are uploaded by members who support the channel, and it's either through YouTube memberships or through Patreon. And then there's a link that I put up every month, and we sort of talk about the images and go through them. So the link to that, if you want to join as a member, if you're not already, is in the description box below. And there are also on says a thing. I'll put a link also in the I'll learn to speak one of these. I'll put a link in the comments section also to sort of one-to-one feedback sessions if you'd like to do half-hour mentoring, so we can talk about obviously photographs, and then an ongoing mentorship thing as well if you'd like to have a slightly more sort of in-depth long-term look at your photography. I have to say thank you once again. Also, we had the 100,000. It was awesome that you were all, you've all supported the channel. That you keep watching, which is always great. That that you enjoy listening to my sometimes half demented ramblings and all sorts of things like that. It's wonderful to be able to sit and talk about photographs. That's really kind of what the photographic eye is all about, and given that we got to 100,000, I am changing a couple of not changing things. I've had a little think about the channel, and to try and make it a little bit more like my experiences at photo school, so I can sort of help or share on, or pass on some of the the benefit that I had from doing that, and what have you. So that'd be good. Cool. Yeah. So again, John has said, everybody hit the mash the like button. It would be awesome if you did that. But really, it's my pleasure to sit and talk with you, and hopefully give you a little bit of insight into your own photographs. So everybody, no matter where you are in the world, if it's Monday morning already, then go to bed. Right? If it's like here, it's getting into the evening, then have a lovely rest of the day. And for those of you in America land, have a wonderful Sunday coming up. And everybody else is in between. It's been fantastic to see you in between. Yes, so people are in the Atlantic Ocean. I hope that your boat is okay. But everybody from around the world, thank you. It has been a pleasure, and I will see you again pretty soon with some more content on the Photographic Eye. So thanks ever so much, and let us